Nobody brings you better coverage of the teams you're passionate about than these guys.
Try some more.
This is DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ, PK, and it is time to welcome Josh Furlong back to the show. You read him and you see him at KSLSports.com. Josh, good morning.
Good morning. Sorry, trying to fix my camera.
No worries.
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Good. I'm wondering if you're doing well for long, though. The top 25 poll comes out.
Not for Furlong.
Then, nice. Then everybody analyzes how the 65 voters rank teams, and then the hardcore at University of Fill in the Blank begin to search people out and harass them. You got any good stories about people going at you for the way you voted?
Oh, yeah. I mean, every year there's something. I don't know that I have one in particular. I mean, but you get people, even yesterday, that were pretty upset with, how I've put the people. Obviously I have a Big Ten and SEC bias, or I'm not ranking the local teams high enough. It's the same every year, but you just kind of roll with it. I mean, sometimes it gets a little personal. Other times you just have to get off social media.
Yeah, there you go.
Gosh, I hate your ballots. They're always so one-sided favoring the Big Ten and the SEC and Notre Dame, while always dismissing BYU. Not saying BYU should be number one, but you of all people should be more bullish on the local teams. Now, that isn't me talking. That is somebody else, and that's what you're referring to, I assume.
Exactly. It's the same argument every year, and it's fine, right? I mean, that's the hard part, right? Is like, obviously I do have more insight on the local teams, and so there's one hand where you can praise them and you can lift them up a little bit, and then on the other hand you see their warts and you see what's going on with them a little bit more than maybe other teams. And so I think it's a tough task to be able to kind of balance those things and try to say, okay, am I judging them too harshly compared to everybody else? But it's the nature of it. It's a preseason poll. Like it's just a snapshot in time, and it's not anything too serious.
Every year people look for the team that in the top 25 completely falls apart. And last year, number 2, number 4, number 9, Penn State, Clemson, and LSU. LSU fires their coach. Penn State fires their coach in October because of a 3-game losing streak. Pretty dramatic. Is there anybody you put in the top 10 and think, well, based on who they have back, I need to put them here, but I totally realize the bottom could fall out?
I mean, that could be any team, right? Like, because last year I had Penn State number 1. So it's like, I don't know that you expect your number 1 team to drop out of the poll completely, fire its coach, do that kind of stuff. So it's tough to predict, but I mean, there's different things where they have to hit, right? Like, I think Notre Dame is an easy one for everybody to kind of latch onto. With that said, they have a pretty weak schedule. So it's like, if you can't get it done there, then the bottom really does drop out for you. But I think they're the team that many expect to probably not be among the top 5 that I have in there. I have them currently rated number 4. I think there's a lot riding on this season for CJ Carr. Can he be the quarterback that they need him to be? What can they do? There's a team like Ole Miss where, Trinidad Chambliss is coming in for another season, coming off a hot season last year with Lane Kiffin. Now he has to do it under a new head coach. Does Ole Miss have what it takes to be able to be that team? I don't know. That's, on paper, it looks good. They've got a lot of returners. They've got a lot of talent. Pete Golding is a great head coach. At least we assume so from a SEC level. But I think there's teams like that they could fall. I imagine Ohio State and Oregon, Miami, those types of teams will probably be at the top still. But, anything's, crazy in this sport. And that's what's great about it is you get to be able to watch these games. You get to be able to enjoy it. That doesn't invalidate these preseason polls. It's really just a snapshot in time. That's what I try to remind people. It's a snapshot in time where, you're looking and you're saying, okay, here's the teams where we think they're going to be. And obviously that gets changed every single week.
Big 12-wise, we've got Texas Tech at 10, which you should say you have, BYU 16, Utah 20, and then rounding it out with Houston at 25. Give us your thoughts as to what went into that.
Yeah, Texas Tech, I mean, they return a lot of talent, plus they just continue to stock up in the transfer portal. So there's a good reason for them to be at the top. If there is a team that I think could potentially drop it, maybe Texas Tech. We don't know what's going to happen at quarterback, right? Will Hammond is expected to be the starting QB, but we don't really know if he's going to be ready. We don't know if they're going to have what they need to at the time. Their schedule's soft enough that it probably helps them, but they may not be the same juggernaut that they were last year. I think there's a lot of people that expect BYU to be that team, and, for good reason. They return a lot of their talent from last year. Bear Bachmeier is coming into a second season where he's got a lot more experience. Obviously, there's questions on the defensive side in terms of, can Kelly Papinga continue what Jay Hill did? They're not going to change much, but at the same time, there's going to be some changes there. Do they have a wide receiver that can really kind of spread the field for them? What's going to happen there? So that's why I put them a tiny bit lower. I still think BYU is probably near the top there, but at the same time, there's some questions they need to prove as well. And then Utah, obviously that's a team that has a ton of questions, but I think there's potential there, coming off an 11-2 season where you have Devin Dampier, you have, Wayshawn Parker, you have potentially the best wide receiver corps that they've ever had there, mixed in with a defense that for the most part rebuilds every single year. There's belief that they can do it. That's why I have them at 20. I want them to be able to show that they can do a little bit more, but at the same time, validate that they can be good enough. And then Houston, Houston's one where I toyed with either them or Arizona. I think Houston has probably a little bit more of an edge right now. They've got a lot of returning talent as well, but at the same time, they haven't been able to really sustain it a ton, and their schedule wasn't as challenging last year, and they still weren't able to do it as well. So, Houston, Arizona, maybe even Kansas State probably could fit in that same 25 spot. I think there is at least one other Big 12 team in there, but I chose Houston just because Connor Wegman's back. He's a returning, you could put Arizona there with Noah Fafita, but I think Houston has a little bit more of an edge right there right now.
You mentioned Wayshawn Parker, and he had to split time early in the season. It was amazing to me how little he got the ball until the last 5 or 6 games of the year when his numbers exploded. Does he get the ball? Does he get 15 to 20 carries a game this year? Or is McGivern going to throw the ball more, so even if he's the featured back, there aren't going to be as many carries to be had?
Yeah, I think that'll probably be more telling based on this offensive line. I think if that offensive line can establish a good run game, then I think Wayshawn will be a big focus of that in terms of, like you said, 15 to 20 carries a game. But I think they're going to try to involve him more in the passing game as well. There's going to be a lot more, short passes, intermediate passes, behind the line of scrimmage passes for Wayshawn. But I think all in all, he's going to be much more of a focus than he ever was. I don't think Utah's going to abandon the run, right? Like, this isn't Kevin McGivern coming in here and suddenly Utah is operating air raid offense. This is going to be balanced in the sense that he feels like he wants to have a balance toward his playmakers, right? That's going to be Wayshawn Parker. That's going to be Braden Pagan. That's going to be a whole host of other players. And so I think whoever has the hot hand, so to speak, is going to be able to get that. So there may be some games where Wayshawn isn't utilized that much. Maybe he's 10 carries a game. And another, I feel like they're going to be able to utilize him 15, 20 carries a game. But even then, even though he's quote unquote RB1, I don't know that it's the same as years past where there's this quote unquote bell cow back, right? Like, I don't think teams are focusing in on that as much. It's much more spread the ball around. You've got, a lot of guys, Hunter Andrews, you got Nate Johnson, Bird Ficklin for that matter, who are going to be able to get in there and factor into the run game, passing game, all kinds of stuff. So, I think it's got to be a shift in mindset in terms of how Utah approaches this. Wayshawn is still the lead guy, and he's going to get the bulk of those carries, but I think it's going to vary on a game-to-game basis.
Your top 5, starting with number 1 and going through down to 5, Ohio State, number 1, Oregon, in number 2, Miami, 3, Notre Dame, 4, Georgia, 5. And then you got Texas at 6. A lot of people think that Texas might be the favorite this year. And so from that perspective, that's probably a little low. What is your thought process there?
Yeah, I think, they have a few returners, but they are rebuilding, a fair amount of their team. If I'm right, let me just verify that I had it. But 2 of their top 3 wide receivers transferred out, and they do bring in some talent through the transfer portal and get the number 1 wide receiver from the portal class. So, there's talent in there, but I think from where they're at and where Georgia's at, it's slim, but I think Georgia has a little bit more consistency. They have a returning quarterback who has been a little bit more successful Obviously, Arch Manning can be a very solid quarterback, and that's the belief, especially as he started to develop as the season went on. But I think there's a little bit more of the pieces around them on the offensive side of the ball that are of a question as compared to Georgia. Now, Georgia isn't perfect, right? Last year, they weren't a perfect team and still somehow ended up winning the SEC. So it's fractions, right? Quite honestly, I even think Oklahoma could be above Texas to some extent. I think they're all kind of lumped in there right in that bunch where, if John Mateer looks like the John Mateer from the beginning of the season before his hand injury, this could be a different game for Oklahoma. So I think there's just these little nuances there. I think Texas is a really solid team. Steve Sarkisian is going to be another great head coach this year. It's just going to matter on who emerges from that. And obviously they've got the talent. They've got, the transfer portals that come in. It just is going to depend on who kind of separates themselves from that. And right now I just give Georgia the nod because they are the defending champions. They have a little bit more consistency. And, that's just kind of the nature of what it's been in the SEC for the last few years.
Anyone who's listened to this show know there's two teams that PK loves to loathe. Ohio State, who you ranked 1, and Oregon, who you ranked 2. Oregon's only losses in the last 2 years have only lost 3 games, and they've been to the teams that have won the title. What's separating them from kicking the door in? And it looks like you've got them losing one more time, getting frustratingly close and coming up short again.
Yeah, I think Oregon is a very interesting team, right? Because they clearly have the pieces to be able to do what they need to win a national title. But for whatever reason, they haven't been able to close the gap. Now, I think the fact that they have Dante Moore coming back, they have probably one of the best wide receiver corps in the entire country. They've got a solid defense. There's so many reasons to believe in Oregon, but it's one of those things where, I rode with Oregon the entire time that they were the number 1 team, right? Like they clearly were the number 1 team, but they weren't able to get it done in the playoffs. And granted, you can argue the playoff system really messed them up and it wasn't a great system for them. But I think they just, for whatever reason, haven't taken that next step. Ohio State is obviously a little bit more consistent. They're bringing in Julian Sayin. They've got their star running back coming back. They've got obviously Jeremiah Smith. They've got a lot of the consistency there. They've got a lot of the defensive mindset that's still there. They've also won a national championship in the last couple of years. So to me, that's what gives me the edge there. I honestly think there's such a fine gap between these two teams. I think Oregon probably has the best overall team, but Ohio State has the more consistency and the ability to be able to get to the finish line because that's what they've done. So it's 1A, 1B in my opinion. You could rank Oregon and I wouldn't be upset at number 1. But at the same time, I think I'm going to go with the team that has had more success recently, even though Oregon is definitely right there with them.
We had on Tim Brando the other day, and he was saying he didn't think it was going to go well for Michigan. And then we had the beat writer for the Detroit News who's been doing it since 1992, so she certainly knows what she's talking about. And she was looking at possibly as an 8-4. You've got the Wolverines at 17, and obviously they've become somewhat of a local story with all the connections. We know all that. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think, fair or unfair, the season is going to ride on Bryce Underwood. And I don't know that what we've heard from camp / what we saw last year is a huge indicator that they're going to have a ton of success. Now, with that said, I think they have a lot of great talent coming back. Kyle obviously is a great head coach and he can maximize a lot of that talent, but we're going to have to see it all come together, right? Like I think Michigan has all the capabilities in the world to be a top 25 team, top 15 team, win a national championship like we saw a few years ago, but it's all got to come together. And so for that reason, I'm not so high on Michigan in the sense that I think they can do it like some of these other teams. I really do think it just comes down to Bryce Underwood. And, I don't know that that's fair, but I think if they can't get a great, passing game or a great, consistency in quarterback, that's going to be a really tough situation. And quite honestly, years of experience watching Kyle operate with his quarterbacks, I don't know that he's going to necessarily take that next step, right? Like Kyle had good quarterbacks, but there wasn't this huge glow up, so to speak, from one year to the next. And I think that's going to be the same thing with Bryce Underwood. I don't know that there's going to be this huge glow up. Now, with that said, Jason Beck is a solid offensive coordinator. You obviously saw what he did with Devin Dampier, but I don't even know that Bryce Underwood is to Devin Dampier's level yet, simply because he hasn't proven it. Now,
right.
5-star talent, right?
Yeah.
There's potential there, but I don't know that he's lived up to that billing yet.
No, not yet.
Can they get away with him not throwing the ball much because he's such a brilliant runner? Or does that just make him too one-dimensional?
I feel like that makes it too one-dimensional, right? Like we've seen this time and time again under a Kyle Whittingham system where when we become too one-dimensional, it may work for a bit, but it becomes a challenge. Now with you say that, and then I can sit here and say Utah, broke an all-time record of rushing, and so they were more one-dimensional. But I think they had enough variance in there that they could do it. But I think it becomes so much more harder to do that, and if they can't figure that out, I don't know that it's going to go well for them.
I think part of the strength of the Big 12 is when you get down to teams 6, 7, maybe 8. I don't know how far you want to go, but you can make a point that there's some pretty decent teams in the middle of the league. And we already talked about how you've got, 4 ranked. And then you also have in your consideration, now you just have it alphabetically, you have the Cats, who you've already mentioned, the Sun Devils, and Kansas State and TCU. So what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4 teams. So you're looking, there you go. So you got basically half the league, which do you feel like could at least deserve consideration. I really think that that's the strength of the league, and I think that you're reflecting in that in your poll. Give us your thoughts as far as including these other teams and the strength of the league being actually in its depth, where you can consider half the teams then to possibly be ranked and at least be in contention as we get into late October and November.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a strength in the sense that there is a lot of teams that can vie for those spots, right? But I think as part of that, it becomes a challenge in terms of being able to have one dominant team
Right.
where the national media can focus on, right? The Big 12 is not going to get the same spotlight that the Big 10 and the SEC are going to get. And so when you have a lot of these teams beating each other up, I think it just kind of dilutes that market, and it doesn't help national perspective on what the Big 12 can be. That's why a Texas Tech, a BYU, a Utah emerging as the dominant team year over year is going to help this conference. And I know that's not easy. And even Brett Yormark admitted that 2 years ago in his media days, address. He sees that there has to be some sort of emergence from one of these teams to make it work. So, whether it's Arizona State, Kansas State, or TCU in that mix, that's great for the conference in terms of parity and trying to be able to make a great conference where you can't guarantee wins, but at the same time, you're never going to be able to compete with these top programs because they're never going to look at you that way, because any given week, all of a sudden Arizona goes and beats BYU this week. That's not a great system. It's fun football, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it's not great for the landscape of the Big 12 because they've got to try to vie for every little spot that they can. And that's why I think you saw BYU not make it into the playoffs last year, is because there's just so much parity there where it was easier to say, well, this conference, it can go any one of two ways. Plus, they lost to Texas Tech twice, in that season. There was no differentiator there, and so it's easy for them to overlook the Big 12.
You hedged your bets there with Houston. Are you just scared that it was so many close wins last year that the law of averages has just got to bite them?
I think so. I mean, like I said, I've got them at 25. I don't know that that's probably going to be sustained. I think a team like Arizona is probably better suited to get there, but I think Houston felt like a really good team at the end of the season. They're still holding over a lot of the same roster that it can get there. But if there's a team of that forward to kind of drop back, I honestly think it could be Houston. I don't trust Kansas State fully. So to me, it's Arizona State. Arizona State, I know PK loves his alum, but I don't know that there's too many questions there, right? I don't know what Arizona State's going to look like.
So many
this
transfers.
Year, right? Exactly. Like Sam Levitt last year coming back, there was a lot to believe in Arizona State. I just don't know that we have those same answers here. But I think that group of 4 right there, group of 5, I think there's so many more questions than the 3 above them. Utah has a ton of questions, but I think there's been more consistency over the last few years to help them that kind of emerges from that other group. So, it could be Houston, like I said, it could be Arizona. It's a coin flip in a lot of respects on who could be that last team in.
So because of the depth, which can work against you as far as the 1 or 2 great teams, probably you're looking at only one team from the Big 12 getting in the playoff?
That would be my assumption. I mean, barring two of these teams really kind of separating themselves and just dominating the entire season, which could happen. I mean, Texas Tech has a really weak schedule. BYU and Utah don't have hard schedules. Their biggest differentiator is probably themselves playing each other, I should say. BYU does have to play Notre Dame, so that's a challenge there. But, I think you're going to have two teams that are dominant the entire season and really just kind of blow people away. And even then, it may not work like you saw with BYU last year. So to me, the Big 12 is still a one bid league until they can prove it otherwise. And I think, until that happens, that's always what it's going to be.
Well, I'm going to use my burner account to send you an email right now because I just don't like your attitude.
Do it.
You suck, Josh.
I'm the worst. I should be fired. I'm the worst balloter ever. How did they give it to me?
You clearly don't know anything about football.
Nope, none of it.
All right. Well, good luck with all the fun, hate, social media and email and whatever else you get, Josh. And you just do this job for the money, right? I mean, they're paying voters a ton of cash, not like back in the day when PK had to do it for free.
I got $0.
I'm rolling in cars and watches and everything. They're just loading me.
Yeah, right. All right, Josh. We appreciate it. Thanks. We'll see you up at a practice sometime. All right.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
There's Josh Furlong. He covers the Utes. He's up there for all of Morgan Scalley's press conferences, media availabilities, covering the team. You can follow him at KSLSports.com and the KSL Sports app. You miss those days as a voter?
No.
It was fun. You said you did it, and then you moved on.
You summed it up exactly.
There it is.
Yeah. My exact feelings when I first got to do it and everything was fresh and new. Yeah, it was awesome. But after a while, you're traveling and you got to have the thing up. It's actually easier to do the preseason one because you got all this time.
Right.
But in the season, most of these people are on the road or at home, and football Saturdays for us are long days. And
you have to be doing multiple things at the same time, and you just can't be.
Right. And so you're trying to follow all these teams, and then you got to have it by like 8 o'clock the next morning or something. Mm-hmm. And if you're and especially in the West Coast here, or the west part of the United States, we're doing these things, these late games and all this stuff. And it became too much after a while for too little pay, which is zero.
Zero. Yeah.
And so let somebody else have it. So I had my time doing that stuff and all that. The one thing I have kept is the Wooden, because of my respect for John Wooden.
Right. And it's not the weekly grind in the same way.
No, it's not.
It's a totally different beast.
It's 1,000 times easier. Yeah.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We have talked about a lot of stuff this morning, some golf, some baseball, a lot of college football. As always, everything you missed, we'll get to it next. Stay with us.